Question number 26. So question number 26 wants us to factor by grouping, all right? So whenever you're factoring by grouping, you need to try to group two things together that you can assume will be similar, all right? So a lot of times, guys, whenever you're given an equation like this that has an x cubed, all right, more than likely it wants you to factor by grouping because at Algebra 1 level, you only know how to factor a quadratic, okay? So again, I'm going to show you how to factor by grouping. So the first thing you're going to do, guys, is split your equation in half. So I'm going to split my equation in half, okay? And I'm going to first look at my first half and try to figure out what they have in common. So I'm going to first look at my x to the third power plus 3x squared. So my x cubed plus 3x squared. And I'm going to try to figure out what they have in common, all right? So technically, guys, in front of this x cubed is a 1. So I'm going to first look at the coefficients in front to figure out what they have in common, all right? So I'm going to write below, we have a 1 and a 3. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to list out all the numbers I can divide 1 and 3 by, all right? So I can divide 1 by only 1, okay? What can I divide 3 by? I can divide it by 1 and 3, okay? Now I'm going to circle the largest thing that they both have in common. So the largest thing they both have in common is a positive 1. So that means that they have positive 1 in common. All right? So now we're going to look at the variables. We're going to look at the letters. Okay? So we have an x cubed and we have an x squared. So let's write that. We have an x cubed and we have an x squared. So technically, an x cubed means that you're multiplying 3 x's together. X squared means you're multiplying 2 x's together. All right? What's the largest amount of x's they have in common? Yup, 2 of them. So that means they both have x squared in common. All right? So that's all that they have in common when it comes on to numbers and letters. So now we're going to write what's remaining inside of a parentheses. Okay? So whenever we're factoring out something, all right, it means like you're dividing each of these terms by what you're factoring out. So if I divide 1 by 1, I still get 1, all right? But if I divide x to the third power by x squared, here I have 3 x's being multiplied by each other. Here I have 2 x's being multiplied by each other. Whenever you're dividing things that have the same base, you subtract exponents. So what's 3 take away 2? Leaves you with 1 or just x. All right? So now I'm going to divide this by my coefficient in front, and I will get positive 3. Here I have 2 x's, but I'm taking 2 of them away. All right? So if I had 2 and I took 2 of them away, am I left with any x's remaining? No. So this 3 has no x's remaining. All right? So I've just factored this first group. Now let's factor our second group. So I'm going to rewrite my second group right over here. Negative 25x minus 75. All right? So by a glance, guys, I already can realize that they both do not have x's. So will they have x's in common? No. All right? So now let's look at the numbers. All right? So we have at negative 25. All right? Or let's just look at the 25. All right? Okay? So what you're going to do is that you're going to list out all the numbers you can divide 25 by, all right, which are 1, 5, and 25. Okay? What are the numbers you can divide 75 by? Those are 1, 3, 5, 15, 15, and 25 and 75. What's the largest number they both have in common? The largest number they both have in common is 25. All right? So that means I can factor out 25. Okay? And because both of them are negative, that means I can also factor out a negative sign. All right? So that's the only thing that they both have in common. So that means I'm going to write what's remaining inside of a parentheses. Okay? So when I write what's remaining, it's like I'm dividing each of these terms by negative 25. Negative 25 divided by negative 25 is positive 1, and I'm not dividing by any x's, so negative 25x divided by negative 25 is positive 1x. Okay? Negative 75 divided by negative 25 is positive 3. And you see how we have the same things inside of both of these parentheses right here for factors? You have to have the same thing in both those parentheses for this to work. All right? So our first factor form would be x plus 3. You only write it once. All right? And my next one would be x squared and the negative 25. So these will go in my next parentheses. So x squared minus 25. All right? But you're actually not done yet, guys, okay? Because you can actually factor this a little bit more, all right? So the one that has a negative can be factored a little bit more, all right? So this one that has a positive sign in between, you're just going to leave it the same. That cannot be factored anymore, all right? However, this one can be, all right? So now you ask yourself, what two same numbers will multiply to give you 25? Yup. 5 and 5, okay? So that means this can be factored more to be x plus 5 and x minus 5, all right? Because again, 5 times 5 gives you 25, and a negative means different signs, all right? So this that I put in the box is the answer, all right? So let's try to do the next one, guys, all right? So again, guys, we're going to factor by grouping. So I'm going to split this in half. All right, that's the first thing I'm going to do. So I can factor my first group, okay? So my first group is 12x cubed plus 16x squared. So let's find what they have in common. So we have a 12 and a 16. What can we divide 12 by? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. What can I divide 16 by? 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. What's the largest number they both have in common? Yup, 4. Okay? So that means I can factor out a 4. So I'm going to write it right up. Actually, I'm going to write it underneath. Okay? So that we don't get confused. So we can factor out a 4. Okay? So here we have a x cubed and a x squared. All right? So what's the largest amount of x's that they have in common? So yep, we have 3 here, we have 2 here. The largest that they have in common is 2 of them, all right? So you won't need to always do this long setup, guys, okay? So a lot of times you can do this in your head, but again, I'm doing this setup just so you can understand what we're doing, okay? So now we're going to write what's remaining because, again, we factored out all that they had in common. So it's like I'm dividing each of these terms by 4x squared. 12 divided by 4 is 3. X cubed divided by x squared. So I have 3 x's here. I have 2 down here. 3 take away 2 leaves me with 1x or just x. All right. So positive 16 divided by positive 4 is positive 4. We have x squared here, but I'm taking away x squared. So again, if I have 2 and I take 2 away, would I have any x's remaining? No. All right. So now let's look at my second group because I'm already finished factoring this group. So my second group has a negative 75x and a negative 100. All right. Do they both have x's in common, guys? No. The only thing they have in common is probably the coefficients in front. So let's look at those numbers, guys. All right. So we have a negative, a 75, all right, and a 100. Do you think that they both have negatives in common? Yes, they do, all right. So again, they both would have a negative in common. So let's see what that negative number is, all right. So numbers we can divide 75 by are 1, 3, 5, 15, 25, and 75. And numbers we can divide 100 by are 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, 20, 25, 50, and 100. All right? What's the largest number they have in common? Yep, 25. All right? So that means I can factor out a negative 25. All right? So now let's write what's remaining, guys. Okay? So I'm going to write what's remaining inside of parentheses. So it's like I'm dividing each of these terms by negative 25. Negative 75 divided by negative 25 is positive 3. All right, so we're on a good start because, again, we had a positive 3 inside of here. I am not dividing by any x's, so this x stays the same. And negative 100 divided by negative 25 is positive 4. And you see how we have the same numbers inside of these parentheses? All right, that is your aim. If you don't have the same numbers, that means something went wrong. All right, so I'm going to rewrite only one of these. Okay, and then these two terms right here goes in their own parentheses. All right, so one of these two terms can be simplified more. Which one do you think can be? Yup, the one that has the negative. So the one that has a negative has a possibility. This one that has a positive can never has the possibility, all right, because it does not have that negative sign in between, all right? This one does, okay? So you're going to ask yourself, what two same numbers can multiply to give you 4? Yup, 2 and 2. What two same numbers multiply to give you 5? Or 25? Yup, 5 and 5. That was a giveaway, all right? So that means this can be factored more to be 2x plus 5 and a 2x minus 5, okay? Because 2 times 2 gives me that 4, x times x gives me x squared, 5 times 5 gives me 25, and when you see a negative right here, they always have different signs, all right? So again, guys, just like that.